And so, I'm sorry?
Who's echoing?
No.
Somebody's echoing.
Okay. So I'm going to just mute a couple folks. Mute Julie, I'm going to mute you. And Stephen, who is Stephen? I just asked and then I muted you. Oh, Mr. Schiff, I bet. Mr. Schiff, he's probably on his bike. That's the echo, I bet. Mark, it might be you, so I'm going to turn you off too. Okay, we're going to talk about the DISC personality tool today. And I know when he says personality tool, I'm not talking about myself. I get it. You can all laugh later at that. But before we jump in, I do want to try to make this a bit of a habit because it's always exciting to me to look at our production as a company, both individually as well as an office and then entirely. So in the last week, we only had really 4 big sales, and I'm using big as $500,000 list price and over. Steven, get after whatever you're eating, man. Was that a lizard? Jesus, dude. Yeah! Man, Independence Day every day for Steven. Anyway, we only had 4 sales over 500,000, but the good news is 3 of them were huge. Here's who I got that I can shout out for. Suzanne and Dana. Suzanne Walsh and Dana Buxton here in Sun Valley. Sold a nice home in Haley, list price of $595,000. Nice job. Rita, make sure that you tell Jen that I called her out for her sale of a $1.495 million list. I like to only use list prices because using sales prices gets you in trouble with other agents, gets you in trouble with buyers. So get in the habit of just using list price when you're talking publicly, okay? Angie, Mark, make sure you tell Angie that I'm calling her out in Bozeman. $846,900 list price in Bozeman. That's a pretty big deal in Bozeman, so awesome job, Miss Keel. And then finally, the huge behemoth sale of the week, and not quite of the year, but it's a big one. Suzanne Walsh, she closed on a home north of Ketchum. It was listed at $3.495 million. And with the help of Dana, who works with her sometimes, but Suzanne Walsh, 2 big sales. This is all awesome. And I'm not like, the small stuff really, really matters. Don't get me wrong. But I think when people do the big stuff, they deserve a little shout out. And honestly, I wasn't going to do it, but 3 weeks ago, if you remember me calling out Steven Schiffer's $622,000 sale or something, it's like, you gotta let people know I'm doing this work. Okay, so that's where it all started. It's all thanks to Steven. Can I do a few more numbers? Yes? Great. Listen to this. And Eric and Mark, I'm sorry I don't have Bozeman and Telluride numbers because you all weren't with us a year ago. Oh, Julie, who is that? Is that Amber? Hi, Amber. Welcome to our company. She's our new OM in Vail. So awesome. Nice to have you. Can't wait to work with you. And you're like, oh, my God. Really going to happen every week. Okay, here's what I can tell you. Such great news across the board. And Eric, this is why I was asking for your numbers. I'm just going to run through our 5 offices that were with us last year at this time. We're done with the first half. Here's what we've done in the first half of 2018 versus the first half of 2017. Keeping always in mind that 2017 was what? A really good year. So when you take a really good year and you build on it like we do in all our offices, that gives me some goosebumps, and it's not just because it's cold in here or because Josh is in the room with me. Anyway, here we go. Grand Junction. Ready? They're up 20% in sales. Sides is actually more accurate. Yeah, settle down, Carrie. And 32% in volume. Mark, awesome job. So you've jumped to 800 sides so far and $202 million in volume, Grand Junction. Unbelievable. That's great. Montrose, Valerie, make sure that you tell Alan that I'm actually not missing him. But anyway, you're up 19% in size over 2017, and you're up 41% in volume, which is, again, phenomenal. 154 sides this year, $36.7 million in volume so far this year, knocking the socks off in Montrose. And I know you don't even wear socks in Montrose because you're always in flip-flops and stuff. Vail. Oh, Julie, hang on. Amber, man, welcome to this. This is some Julie action here. Up 100% in size from 19 to 38. Whoop, whoop. And up 109% in volume from 12.5 to 26.1 million in versus last year. So nice job, high fives galore, do whatever you do in Vail. I don't want to talk about Colorado, just knock yourselves out. Steamboat and Craig, no, you're up a tad, 4% in sales, and you're just about even in volume, one sale away from being way ahead. So keep up the good work in Steamboat and Craig, Chucky Poo. And Sun Valley, we're doing okay. We're up 63% in sides, and we're up 129% in volume. And again, we had a phenomenal 2017. So really good stuff. We jumped from 64 sides to 104 sides, and from 22.8 million last year at this time to 52.3 million at this point. Okay, what does all that mean? It means awesome, awesome, awesome work. It means that the fan club is working now. It means that agents are just crushing it, and OMs in almost all of our offices, except for Grand Junction, are doing awesome work for their agents, and I just couldn't be happier about how all of this feels. And so pat yourselves on the back. Todd, in one of our calls this morning, how many calls we have, Mark? Like 4? In one of our calls this morning, Todd stressed to the MDs to know your numbers. And so when I give you these numbers, it's not just so leadership can be like, woo, woo. It's so that you as the agent can walk into a listing presentation or walk into a group of other agents from other offices or walk into wherever and say, yeah, hey, I know our MLS is good, but here's our numbers. Montrose, man, we're up 19% in sides in our office and 41% in volume. So listing with us, pretty good idea. We get the job done. You see how the numbers can turn you into an even better agent? You can use these. These are all arrows in your quiver. You belong to a company that has skyrockets in flight. So make sure you're singing the song, but not that one. Okay? Okay. Any comments about that? You don't need to. I don't need anything, but any comments? I can tell you where I found those. They might not jive with your MLS because I got them from IQO. A couple different ways to read things, but they're pretty accurate. Any thoughts?
Hey, Derek, just a quick comment. I know we don't have the sales comparison for Bozeman, but I'll just give a shout out to Jeff Renovere and all the team for adding 15 new agents to our office in the past 9-10 months. And that's certainly going to translate to more sales as we start to look at our year after year.
Well, it sure better. But yeah, I mean, Bozeman joined us about a year ago right now. I think it was August 1st. But so we're just about ready to start seeing where we were and where we are. So that's good stuff. Mark, I know that MLS in Bozeman is really fascist, but if you had any way to get me somehow 2017 versus 2018 year to date, that'd be great. Eric, again, that's why I asked for those numbers. And if I get them, I can publicize them next week. Okay, so that's enough with numbers for now, but just hats off to everybody. We're going to talk about the DISC personality profile. And this is something that, whether you're into personality type tests or not, whether you even have ever thought about it or not, here's the real point of why we're going to spend the next half hour or so going very briefly over the DISC personality tool. Because there is some truth to that we all fit into a little bit of a different category in terms of our personalities. And while you as the agent have your own personality type, almost all agents are type A, just freaky diva. No, I'm kidding. Agents fit into their own personality type. That's not as important as the client or the agent that you're working with. What's their personality type? And if you can read that, and if you get good at this, you can read it within 5 minutes and know, oh, they're a D, they're an I, they're an S, they're a C. Then you are better equipped to negotiate, to structure a conversation that is going to resonate with them instead of, like me, just making sure that you, the speaker, is happy. Right? That's the beautiful thing about Zoom is I can just mute everybody. I don't really even care because I get to talk the way I am. I'm a high I think. Anyway, if I'm talking to another agent who is not like me, I need to adjust how I talk. Otherwise, they're going to run. And so the point of of what we're about to look at isn't so much for you to know your personality type, although that's helpful, but it's so that you can better read others and have a better shot at convincing them of whatever it is you want to convince them of. Okay? Whether it's your kid, your spouse, your parents, your clients, another agent, your OM, your MD, whatever, read them and you'll be a better, I hate to use the word negotiator, but that's what I'm going to say, because every communication is a negotiation. Okay, how are we going to do this? I'm no expert at this. In fact, when I first did this with kids back when I was a teacher, I came up with a series of 4 letters, but it spelled out J-E-R-K. It was like be judicious, be energetic, be rounded, and be knowledgeable. And then they're like, oh, be a jerk. And I'm like, oh, whoa, I can't use that one. So obviously I used the 4 wrong letters. DISC works a little bit better. And we're going to see what those stand for, even though it's not clear 100% what all 4 of them stand for. There's some controversy in the world of DISC, believe it or not, about what those letters stand for. But we're going to jump into that. Okay, now that I've depleted my monologuing, I'm going to share my screen. Amber, isn't this technology great? I mean, I don't know if you use this at whatever your last job was, but this is just some cool stuff, I think. Okay, so mark thumbs up if you can see this pie chart. DISC, DISC. Oh, I got 2 thumbs up from 2 marks. That's awesome. Here's what it supposedly stands for. D stands for dominant. And I know that sounds a little bit pejorative, like, oh, I don't want to be a D. And if you think, well, how can I change that? Then that probably means you're a D. I stands for inspiring and also interesting and interactive. S, supportive, steady, stable, really reliable, that sort of thing. C stands for someone who's cautious, competent, careful. I've also seen conscientious, compliant. So, come up with as many words that fit these little pie graphs as you can. Here's the thing, obviously, and I know some of you are already thinking, dude, people are not this black and white. Of course you're not. You're not a D only. You're not an I only. Some people will be, a hybrid here. Some people will cross into inspiring and cautious. Like, we get all that. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to talk about these 4 personality types and not worry so much about the blurring of edges, because that'll just complicate things. Oh, and I should have said this. Mark is much more of an expert, Mark W., than I am at the DISC personality tool. Any of you that have experience with this or think it's hogwash or whatever, please chime in, because I am no expert on this, because I'm a high I. I don't care about all these details. That's not quite true, but absolutely jump in if you've got insights about this. But this is the basics. A D is dominant. They are going to be the ones who want to control the situation. They're the drivers. They're the doer. Let's get this done. An I, you'll hear Keith, our recruiting director and MD at Grand Junction, always say, I'm a high I. Because all he wants to do is say things that make people go, oh, I want to do that. He doesn't care about the doing as much as he cares about other people doing the doing. That's inspiring. He's interactive. He wants to engage. S, I don't know any people that are S's. No, I think, obviously being supportive without being inspiring, you can see the difference there. So the S is people who like being behind the scenes. D and I like being in front of the curtain. S, in high school, were you a set designer instead of the lead actor? Were you a manager instead of the point guard? So those are the people behind the scenes that want to see everybody else succeed. And these are the people here who are like, they don't talk much in meetings. They really want to know all the details about stuff before they make decisions. Okay? So the second layer of this, of course, is up here you've got the outgoing, dominant and inspiring. They're the people, that's why I'm a high I. I think I'm outgoing. I'm going out, out of going. Over here we've got task-oriented, people that want to get things done. I need to know what the tasks are, even though I'm cautious. What's the job? I'll do it. These are the quieter people over here. And then the supportive and inspiring people care about what other people think and how other people feel. The dominant person's like, I'm doing it, I don't care. Oh, are you crying over there? There's a hanky. Boom, gone, right? Inspiring and supportive people are going to be worried about the person who's crying, even though the task needs to get done. All right. So This comes from Personality Insights, Inc. That's my website. All right, so here's a lot of text. I'm going to send this slideshow along with the recording so we don't have to read it all, but I basically tried to amalgamate a bunch of different sites into one 12-page slideshow. This is pretty redundant now that I'm looking at it. But here's the thing. If you are interacting with an agent, and boy, there are a few out there, who's a high D, that demands a certain type of interaction from your end. Okay? You're not going to get them to understand how to interact with you. And if you want to get the job done, then it's your job to understand how to interact with a D. And I've got a chart down here that gives us a little bit of insights about that. The key insight, I like these parentheticals. The key insight in developing a relationship with a D person is respect and results. If you're working with a D person, you talk about the end game right away. What's this going to look like? What is the job going to look like when it's done? Okay? Get lost in the minutia, the D is out the door. All right? So that's the first insight into interacting with D people. If you are a D person, I don't know what to tell you. Now, if you are a D person, you got to figure out, and Mark, this is where I don't really have any answers. It's like, if I'm a D person, how do I interact with another D person? Or how do I calm myself down from being the dominant? Is there a way to do that if I'm a D?
I think it's kind of challenging because you get two D people together. They both want to, they're driver, right? So they both want to drive. They both want to be in charge. They both want to dominate the conversation, whatever. Somebody has to take a back seat as a salesperson. In a lot of cases, that might be you, or maybe depending on what the situation is, you might need to, take over for them. But the bottom line is they don't want fluff. They just want to get it done, and they're very quick to make decisions.
Yeah, and you can see how this can go the wrong direction. If you're a D and you're working with a D and you're trying to one-up them, you could send them the other way because they don't want anyone else to be in the driver's seat. However, a D does respect other Ds, right? Like a dominant person wants to have another person who's got the same oomph. I think that there's a sense out there that, well, be complimentary. If you're a D here, you should work with an S. Ds and S's are tough together, right?
Right. Honestly, you can get a lot done as long as everybody's kind of going the right direction. If somebody's got a different plan of where something should head from a negotiation standpoint or whatever, that can be real challenging. I mean, Todd and Keith are both 99 D on the Tony Robbins test. I mean, they are the top of that pyramid, and they'll get at it a little bit, but they know that they're both going the same direction, and it can work out really, really well. It's just it can be combative. So.
Right. So Mark, you had mentioned Jeff earlier, and there's no good D, like D is bad and S is good. Like That's not it. These are people. These are personalities. There's no good and bad here. So for me to ask who do you know that's a D, it's not like, well, I guess that's totally fine. Mark Corner, would you say that Jeff, your MD, is a D? And just based on the 4 minutes we've talked about this, I want you to assess him and pigeonhole him forever.
I'd say he'd be about halfway up the D scale.
Yeah, I mean, he's always to me very driven and very like, okay, what do we need to do here, right? So I think of him as a pretty classic D in that way.
Yep, he's a guy that responds quite well to coaching, having goals set, and boy, you set something for him, and he'll get after it.
Yeah. And so, and again, which isn't to say that the other three types don't set goals and don't get after it. It just looks very different. Mm-hmm. So if I'm working with a client who I know is a D, I want to ask him, what do you need out of this deal? Right? I want to know, is he looking for money? Is it timing? What's this going to look like? Let's put the prize first and not get lost in the details. Okay?
Right.
All right, so there's some D stuff. I stands for the inspiring type, which is outgoing.
Can I say something, Derek?
Go ahead.
So when Craig Hogan was here doing our presentation for luxury, he's the VP of luxury for CB. He used this in an example on how to maximize the effectiveness of your listing listing presentation. And so his example was, it's so important to be able to read their seller and understand whether they're a D or an SC, because if you're dealing with an SC, for example, they'll have pre-read all of your pre-listing information. They'll have little tabs in the sides because they have an hour's worth of questions that they want to go through. And so knowing that and appreciating that about your client and allowing them to be in their natural state is important. If you rush someone like that, then you'll lose the listing. On the contrary, if you're sitting with a high D and your pre-listing presentation is sitting there unread, and you say, oh, I see you got my listing presentation. What did you think? Say, oh, yeah, I got it. I haven't read it. What's in it? What do I need to know? So those are things that you need to pick up on and read so that you can know the best way, preferred way that they like to communicate. And the example with Keith and Todd, even though they're similar personality types, they know how to communicate with each other. And so sometimes I think communication is easiest between similar personality types because that's their natural state. They know, they get right to the point with each other. And so our challenge in sales is being able to detect that natural state that our clients prefer to communicate in and not try to change that, but really try to meet that and help them feel most comfortable.
You're exactly right. And thanks, Julie, for that. One of the reasons we're talking about DISC is it seems like it's come up about 15 times in the last month. Craig Hogan mentioned it. It's come up in our MD meetings. I've been dancing to a lot of Donna Summer lately and Bee Gees. So there's a lot of disco in my house. And so I'm like, well, not everybody knows what this is. Let's get this on the table here, right? So that's why we're talking about it. I'm glad you mentioned that, Julie. She couldn't be more correct. I don't care what your personality type is. If you don't adjust to someone else's, you're doing everybody that you're trying to do business with a disservice. It's your job to be the responsive one, to be the adaptable one. You want to do more sales? You're gonna think about this and figure out how to interact with people, not just your way, but a better way for each independent situation. Let's go to the parenthetical here for the inspiring type. The key insight in developing a relationship with this type of person, an I, is admiration and recognition. So if I'm a high I, I'm trying to process this in my head right now. If I'm a high I, is this true? Do I respond to admiration and recognition? I don't know. Someone tell me. That's probably true. That's probably true. I don't think that I's need a ton of like back patting and back slapping and names and lights, but liking to know that you're doing a good job a little bit. Yeah. So, okay. All right, we're moving on. This is not meant to be all-inclusive. This is meant to give you an oversight. I've got links at the end that you can take the DISC test if you've never done it. I've got video links at the end so you can watch this on your own. So this is just overview, so please don't ask for the citations. S stands for the supportive type, which is reserved and people-oriented. You also saw on that first slide, it stands for steady and stable, supportive. Okay, S stands for supportive. The supportive S type, that's someone who, all these people want to get the job done. It's just doing it in different ways. The key insight in developing a relationship with this person is friendliness and sincere appreciation. This doesn't mean all MDs are Ds. This doesn't mean all OMs are S's. But let's think about your OM. And what does your OM respond to? I know my response to sincerity, friendliness, and the occasional cup of coffee. So, think about people that are very supportive. They help you, whether it's your assistant or someone in your family. And the best way to maybe think about how to interact with all those other people is when you think of your S person, what makes them feel best? What makes the supportive person in your life feel best? Whatever that is, use it for other S's out there. Use that same approach to communication that you use for the S in your life. Okay? All right? Think about the D. The D doesn't really care about, the sincerity and the friendliness. They want to get the job done. And if feelings get hurt sometimes, big deal. That's part of business, right? The friendliness and sincere appreciation is not going to work as well with a D as it will with an I or an S. Remember, the I and the S are on the same side. They're people-oriented, okay? And the C stands for the cautious. Other places I've seen it be conscientious, compliant, which I know sounds pejorative, but it just means that they are rule followers. They want to know what the parameters are, and I will do everything I can to get the job done within those parameters. Okay? You're supposed to read the chapter, not ask me about it, says my OM. Okay? The cautious type, the key insight in developing a relationship with this individual is trust and integrity. Think of it this way, folks. A C type is going to research things, and they want to know those facts are right. Okay? Your facts have to be right. You establish trust by showing that you are reliable, that what you say you'll hold to, and so on and so forth. So cautious, very different approach than I. So think about this graph again. Remember how they're sort of connected? It's like a globe. These two are connected. These two are connected. These two are connected. These two are connected. Well, cautious and inspiring are kind of disconnected, if you will. Dominant and supportive are disconnected. So those are the toughest relationships to bridge. If I'm an I and I'm talking to someone who's cautious, oh man, like that's a sweat. That's a workout for me, right? Like I can feel myself sweating. I used to be an admissions director at some boarding schools, and me trying to be like, oh, our school, blah blah, and they're like, yeah, oh, I don't know what to do, right? It's good stuff. Okay, here's a nice colorful graph, probably too bright. A guide to effectively reading people. Okay, observation disc style. Here we go at the top, the DISC. Dominant, inspiring, supportive, cautious. Okay, this was supposed to have images in it, but it didn't copyright, so it just is a blank. Sorry about that. Likes to do things, dominant people like to do things the fast way, inspiring the fun way, supportive the traditional way, and cautious the proper way. Okay. Personal decor. Large desk, awards, useful accessories, things around to just show, hey, the ring on the finger, here's my Bachelor of Science thing that I paid for. The inspiring person is flashy and trendy with fun pictures. Woo! Like staying alive. Photos. Supportive has family pictures, personal mementos, things that are important. And the cautious, aesthetically pleasing, unique, functional. I hope you're trying to, I know we're rushing through this, but I hope you're picturing people that do this. And what are you? And if you already considered yourself an I, does this fit? For me, the personal decor one doesn't. But you don't have. These aren't pigeonholes. Body language. Big gestures and leaning forward. You're always advancing. You're always just like, they're the person whose bubble is very negotiable. They don't have one. Yeah.
Close talker.
Close talker. Likes to use their hands. Telluride. I can't see who's on the call, but my tech talk this week was all about that body language, that Alan Pease guy, and about if your handshake is here, coming in on top, you're running the show. That's a D sign. So all of this stuff is tied together with personality type. If you're an I, you're expressive, friendly, you're amusing, you have a receding hairline, that sort of thing. You go gray in your mid-40s. If you're supportive, you're using gentle gestures. You're reassuring. You're quiet. You're still gesturing. Again, this isn't like bad. It just is different. And then if you're a C, you're unemotional, controlled gestures. You're assessing. Think of the C's in your life who, you're at a party with them and you're like, are you even having any fun at all? And they could be having a blast, but they don't show it like an I would or a D would by being upside down over the keg. The speech pattern, dominant, directive tones, abrupt, interrupting, intentional. The I is talkative. They use varied tones. They're personal. They're where was I? The supportive will use conversational, warm tones, friendly, prefers listening. By the way, as an agent, this should be you. You should prefer listening almost all the time. Ask questions and just shut up. ask questions and shut up, and then remember what they said and say it back to them. They'll fall in love with you no matter what their type. And the C is clarifying, monotone, logical, focused question. I don't want anyone to be looking at C and going, boy, I hope I'm not a C. I hate C. This is not pejorative. There are people like, Rita, did you just say you're a C? And you did it on mute, which is so perfect. I can't even stand it. That was awesome. How does the process is by asking, what is the question they use? So this is the quick one. If you want to find out who you're working with, ask a question where they just have to give a real quick response. The dominant is going to ask about what? What's the thing? What are we doing? Okay? What's the holdup? Inspiring. Who? Because they're about people. Who's going to be involved in this? Who's going to benefit from it? Supportive is how. How are we going to do this? Because I need to know, because I'm pushing from the ground up. And the cautious is going to be like, why are we doing this? I need to know the why first. So this one, again, might be the most useful in determining who that personality, what that personality is. Are they asking, if you say something, are they going to say what, who, how, or why? Not foolproof. Not 20 proof. Personal strength, the dominant is a firm person, the inspiring is a fun person, the supportive is friendly, and the cautious is factual. Think of Scooby-Doo, right? Scooby-Doo probably had all these personality traits in it. Thelma and Shaggy and Fred and Wilma.
Dharma? I don't remember.
And Scooby.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, talk about getting over my head without even getting in the water. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second because see how much words there were in front of us there. Are you in your van, Steve? Are you like on the road going crazy mountain? That's awesome. God,
Oh, wow.
love that guy's lifestyle. I want it. Just shiftless, right? Okay. Before we jump into the next set, and I'm not going to read all that, I promise you. Let's stop. I want to stop talking for just a second. Observations, comments, insights, experiences you have. I know, Julie, you've got disco fever. Valerie, I would assume you know this pretty well given the training you've done. Someone else throws some stuff in here.
I think everybody should take the test. I mean, the more you know yourself and understand how that applies to you, the easier it is for you to then assess your clients, agents, whoever's across the table. I think it really helps to know how these things apply. And there's a million different variations of this, but the root is still the same. So, know yourself, and then it'll be easier.
Know thyself.
That's right.
In the thing, I've got a link. This company uses the Tony Robbins DISC assessment. I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, but he invented an iPhone or something. Anyway, that's the one that you'll get. That's the one. So if you want to if you want to let your inner C merge, you'll use that one. Okay? So you'll get that. And if you've taken it before, take it again. See if you've changed. I know I took it when I was applying for this position. And I think I don't know. I don't remember. Part of my being an I is I don't pay attention to results. I just do the thing and then what's next?
Hey, Derek, did you talk about natural versus, and that was called adaptive?
I missed the
That's
second
pretty
part.
cool.
Say again?
The two styles, natural versus adaptive. How you could be, did you talk about that? I know I ran out of the room for a minute.
No.
I think that's a pretty big point too. Speaking of knowing yourself, is depending on sometimes what role you're in, you know that there are certain expectations of you in the classroom, if you're a student, on the job, if you're not. And so your style, and it tells you, what your natural state is versus your adaptive. And so knowing sometimes that you may be in a role that is challenging your natural behaviors patterns is a good thing to know. It doesn't mean that you have to change jobs. It just means that you have to be extra aware that if you're forcing yourself into behavior patterns that are not your natural, it could create anxiety or stress, that then you just have to be cautious and careful and make sure you're recuperating on the weekends and taking breaks during the day or what have you. people of high intelligence or high IQ can function very successfully in roles where they're being active, going against their natural behavior. That's just something that you learn as someone who grows and adapts yourself to fit into a successful role. But again, to your point, Derek, being aware of that, knowing what your trigger points are and when you need to kind of step back and recover and reboot and rejuvenate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Before taking the Tony Robbins DISC test, I had taken the Myers-Briggs, which some of you may have done, which these are all the same. They measure the same things. They just spit out different terminology. And at my school, everyone was so totally surprised because I came in as a very introverted person. Like I was a big I in the Myers-Briggs. Now, anyone that knows me knows I'm not introverted, but I'm only extroverted in situations like this where I'm with, my people in my comfort zone. If I'm in my comfort zone, you're lucky if my shirt stays on. But if I'm in a crowd, all I want to do is go hide in a stall. That's all I want. So my introversion is big. And so Julie's point that you need to recover if you're adapting to a personality style is huge. If after I do these things, I have to go for a walk and be by myself. And I can't just go, what's next on my, because I need to recover some introversion time because I'm in an adaptive state right now of having to be extroverted and a people person and everything. Then I need to go recover. Okay. So Julie's point about where are you on this? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? You need to reboot. So if you have 5 listing appointments in a row and it's not your natural tendency to be extroverted, figure out a way to make sure that you somehow reinflate in between each of those. Otherwise, it's going to be good, decent, poor, and that last one better not be an important listing because you're just going to be like, just sign a goddamn paper, please. And that's not going to work. So great point, Julie. And I've not come across natural versus adaptive stuff yet, but I'll look into that and we'll see. Can you tell, Julie, or anyone, like if someone is adapting, using an adapted style for a certain, can you tell? Like, if you have to adapt, you said you get a little bit anxious. I mean, I know that I get sweaty and everything when I have to change my personality style. How do you fight through that lack of authenticity when you're interacting?
I think the big thing is you can tell when somebody has to make a snap reaction, judgment call kind of thing. That's where you'll see if they're if they're this way all the time, and then all of a sudden something drops in their lap, and then they, kind of panic mode have to react to it. That's when you'll see who they actually are versus who they in the controlled, what they're putting out there to everybody kind of situation. That's the adaptive. Their natural style is what they're going to fall back on when everything goes crazy.
Right. Especially when they're making a big decision about whether to list with you or whether to sign a contract that says, "Oh, right." So here's where it's really big for real estate agents, right? Like if you've got a deed, make sure you have the paperwork and make sure you ask them to sign, whether it's a listing agreement or signing a buyer's, because they're going to be there to sign. If you're with a C and you're like, let's just sign, dude, they need to take that stuff home. If you're with a C, you say, okay, I want you to have this for a day, and I'll call tomorrow, and you can ask me any questions you have because they're going to sleep on it or not sleep on it. But they deserve the right to respond to that the way that their personality type dictates. Okay, so if you ask for that signage right there, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. So great stuff here about natural versus adaptive. And again, I'll say it over and over. It's not about what you are. It's about what they are and how you let them be who they are and adapt to that. Okay, Lisa, share screen. I'm just going to not read all this stuff. So this is in 4 different languages. I've got it, by the way. So you can read. Here's that Myers-Briggs that I took. Very different thing. Take them both, see if they end up the right way. Someone like me, man, I took the test and I'm like, wait, here's the answer I really want. Here's Dana, she's an I. The next 3 days, everybody's going to be just like putting letters on everybody they meet. oh, hi, this is my friend Jonah, and she's a C. I don't know why her name is Jonah. Anyway, there's some slides here that try to go into more detail about these personalities, general behavior, and temperament. 4 terms to identify a D: competitive, pushy, adventurous, decisive. All of our personality traits have some drawbacks. The D's most obviously is like, dude, just settle down. Stop trying to always make everything happen, etc. These are the people that on Survivor are like just crushing it the first 4 days. And then on the 5th day, they're like, hey, let's get rid of ass face over there so he stops telling me what to do, right? So, granted, he got the shelter built, thank God, but now let's get rid of it, okay?
Right.
4 easy to remember descriptions. See how easy they are to remember? And then I think these links will work. There's more about D type there. I personality. Temperament, 4 terms to identify an I. They're inclusive. They like to hug people. They like to make sure, like, you know, if you've got 11 players for a 5-on-5 game, this person, the I, is going to make sure that there's a sub rotation, no matter how bad the 11th player is, because that person should be able to play too. They're creative, they're outgoing, and they're talkative. Now, I don't know about that last one, but I think the other 3 are pretty good for an I. Okay, and the S personality, temperament. These are, I think, the most important ones here, for at least for our purposes. They're patient, they're reassuring, they're a meditator.
Mediator.
It says meditator. It might mean to say mediator. It might mean to say both. Probably mediator. They like to find a problem and then make it work out. And they're methodical. Okay.
They clearly didn't fill this out.
I know. You can't rush an S. The S and the C, if you ask them to sign now, they're gonna balk. Okay. And the C personality, 4 terms to identify a C are accurate, unable to highlight on accurate, analytical, structured, and purposeful. Rita, you're smiling again. Is this fitting you to a C, a T, a C? Yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Good.
It's such a
Yeah,
C
I'm a high
thing.
C, high S, actually.
Yeah. So what's your role with Jen? Can we pick on you a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'm her assistant. I basically support her and make sure, you know, she has what she needs. And I do the paperwork, communicating with clients. After Jen gets a listing or a buyer under contract, and just make sure everything's good to go.
And you're totally fine. She's out there doing the Jen Peterson, and you're in the office doing that, and that totally works for you.
Totally works for me. Yep.
You said you're an S and a C.
Yes.
Okay. So patient, reassuring. Should this be meditator or mediator?
I would say mediator. They spell it wrong.
How about meat eater?
How about what?
They're all good.
Meat eater.
Meat eater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to change that from meditator, not to mediator, but to meat eater.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So that's some terms to identify these things. There's more. So when you get this, you can take all day to click through this stuff. Here's the test right down here. TonyRobbins.com/disc. If you take this, here's what I would love for you to do, is to send the results to your MD. Not so they can be like, aha, I knew it, but because if we have these things, like mine lives in Teresa's file cabinet, and it just is helpful. You don't have to. I'm not telling you we need your DISC test. I'm just saying it might be useful for your superior in this case to have this sort of thing.
How long is the test?
The test took me about 20 minutes, I think, half hour. Mark?
I honestly think it's even quicker than that. I've done, depending on how the Robbins one isn't near as long as the other versions of it. Because you can take an hour on some of these tests like this, but the Tony Robbins one's not that bad. But it kicks out 60 freaking pages. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what are you? Where do you come out?
High S, C, actually high I, S, and C, but I'm an 88 on the S.
So what the test does is it doesn't say you're an I. It says
Right.
some of this, you're a lot of that, you're a little of that, and you're nowhere.
Yep. But the adaptive thing is the interesting one for me.
Which column is the adaptive? The left or the
The one on the right-hand side
right?
for each one of those. So the S is, or the I is interesting. 67, but my adaptive is 25.
Say it again.
It's 67, but my adaptive is 25.
What does that even mean? What does that mean
Like,
for you?
suppress that version of my personality, I guess. But this is the thing. This is why I think it's good to take it, because it's this stuff. This is actually, to me, this is where, this is the next kind of layer down. Aesthetic, economic, individualistic, all this stuff. That's where I think it's worthwhile to take that test, because that to me is where you really get into the meat and potatoes of what makes people tick. So
Yeah. Again, another neat reference, so thank you for that. So that's really good stuff. And again, I don't even know why I said send this to your MD. Take it and just keep it to yourself. Totally fine. I bet you you'd be surprised where you are, because we're our own worst observers often. We usually recognize less about ourselves than everybody else in the room. This shirt looks great on me. And everybody else is like, dude. Right?
Well, I think it's important to stress that, because we, with all these people there is no right test. Like, there's no right, wrong answer here. It doesn't be like, oh man, you're not a high D, you can't sell real estate. That doesn't work like that. This test doesn't, there are maybe certain places where, certainly being a high C, high SC works really, really well for Rita, but it doesn't mean that she couldn't go out there and sell real estate like crazy too. So, that's definitely, there's no wrong answers to this thing. It's just no.
It's a great point. Here's something that, now I don't know if you were in the session I was in October at Gen Blue, but I think it was Tom Ferry. Maybe you've heard of him. He said something in talking about teams. And so, Valerie, this question is coming to you. In terms of creating a team, and this call isn't about, okay, now take the DISC test and make a team. That's not it. But he had said that in terms of making a team, if you try to balance what you are, maybe a D, with the other thing, you're going about it all wrong. Now, Rita and Jen are not a team. Jen is the agent, Rita is her assistant. That's a supportive role. If you're creating a team where you're like Ross and Eileen in Grand Junction, Tom Ferry said, and I'm not saying he's right, this is Valerie, or you can tell me what your thoughts are. Tom Ferry said, you better find someone that's a lot like you on your team. Otherwise, it's going to be a nightmare. Because if you're a D and you want to get things done, and they're an S, and they're like, or a C, because you're trying to find, let's complement each other, you're going to be like, dude, come on, let's go. And it's going to be nothing but frustration. So, Valerie, you've got a team of 4, correct? 3 or 4?
3.
3. And I'm not asking you to manufacture any answers or anything here, but did any of that personality stuff and like fit and types enter your thinking when you were creating your team?
Well, everybody that I interviewed to be on my team, I had them do a DISC assessment, because I just could not risk, I'm super high D, I couldn't risk me having another high D on the team. It's like I want to be the leader, so it's like that was not an option for me. And so my team is very balanced with Sarah, who's my assistant, and she's a SC, and Stephanie is an I, no, Sarah is an IS, and Stephanie is an SC. And it's, no, we're all very, very different, but we balance each other, and we appreciate each other's differences for sure. Yeah.
And, Tom Ferry saying one is like, whatever, I don't even know if I believe that, but I'd never heard that before. Like, make sure you're all the same. And obviously, Valerie, you've putting the test to work as you're hiring a team, that's really impressive stuff. OM's on the call, be thinking, Carrie, OM's on the call. you have to deal with more of this than anyone, right? You have all 4 types plus 20 others in your office as agents asking you for things. And the best OMs will interact with agents based on what they need. And I'm not talking about I need a flyer, but how they need to be communicated with. So the OM need to be the most flexible, the most adaptable, the most able to go from, oh, I'm dealing with a D here. Yeah, I'll get that done, to someone who's a C. Well, let's figure out why this is working this way, right? So MDs on this call, it'd be interesting to have that conversation with your OM. Like, Amber, you just joined us. I don't know if you took this test. I'm not even asking about that, but Julie and Amber are going to be figuring out over the next few weeks how to best complement each other. Is the personality test something that you could use? I don't know. But these things are really instructive. Valerie, I love the fact that you used it to create your team. That's awesome, to help create your team. Sorry.
I want to say the first thing that Julie did was send me the DISC test before I was even interviewed. So
excellent.
they use that as part of my interview process.
Okay. So you're hired, so I'm not going to be asking any weird questions, I don't think. But Julie, you use that as a filter then? Like you just said, nope, I'm not interviewing this person because of their results?
It didn't stop me from interviewing people, because I think that, again, like I said before, people can adapt themselves. But, in the coaching that we've had in the past on personality, is there are certain personality types that are more effective at certain roles. Just like you were talking to Rita about her comfort level and the things that she does and her personality type, and how maybe someone in an OM role would not be excited to be expected to go out and do a listing presentation. That's just not something that their behavior, it would be adaptive for them. So I do think, there's been a lot of research done on success rates of certain personality profiles in certain roles. And so I do think that has a lot to do. You want to know that someone's going to be as comfortable as possible in the role that you're hiring for.
Excellent. You obviously wouldn't use this with a client. That would probably be infringing on normal agent roles. But I wouldn't be. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an agent, even though I play one on Zoom conferences. Do you ever use the terminology though with clients? Because to me it's kind of impressive when someone says, "Well, I'm an I." It means they've done some thinking about themselves. Do you ever use that as a way to talk to other agents or other clients or anything like that? Any practices revolving around that, or stay away from that?
Depends on who you're talking to, because some of them totally get it. I mean, so many people have done these personality tests. It's not out of the blue, but there's so many different ones. You might, my wife just went through a leadership thing where they had orange and blue and green and whatever. It's the same thing. It's just using colors instead of letters, and so it's funny. But yeah, I have brought it up with people that I knew had actually gone through those things.
Yeah.
Derek, I think if you handle it tactfully, it can be a really good bonding. Sometimes you don't know these people very well when you're doing a listing presentation, for example, or showing property. And so, I would never encourage an agent to say, "Oh, I see you're one of those people who's very analytical." Even though I'm not that way, I've heard about you types, so maybe you'd like to see that this way. But if you handle it tactfully, it can be a really good relationship builder, because just like you mirror and you repeat back to people when you're bonding with them, this can be a great way for them to feel like they're being heard, and that you're understanding their needs. You seem to be asking a lot of questions in all areas. That means to me that you may be an analytical type. Is that really important to you? I'd like to make sure that you get all the answers that you need. Those types of things I think are really reassuring and help you bond more quickly with a client, probably.
Great stuff. I was laughing at the outset because you said if you handle things tactfully, and I'm like, what? That's actually a possibility, to handle something tactfully? God, I got to try that.
There are some hilarious things that I've heard people say that, wow, really just said that out loud.
Steve, your ear is awesome. It's really well kept.
There you go.
It looks like he's jumping out of an airplane. Yeah, Mr. Adventure. Hey, it's almost noon. We're almost halfway done with this last day of the short week.
Derek, sorry, I couldn't hear you, so I had to put it towards my ear.
Yeah, that's great. Thank God the mouth and the ear are close together. Otherwise, phones would look really, really weird. Okay, so here's what we need to finish up with. That's not my joke, by the way. Here's what we need to finish up with is this is awesome. I hope you dig into it. Dig into some of the links when I send you the recording later today. I do want to let you know that next Friday's fan club. Oh, nice, Mr. Timing. What are you on, British time, Alan? I do want you to know that next week's fan club, and I'm going to be reaching out to some of your agents MDs, is going to be a listing presentation face-off, if you will. We're going to have 3 or 4 agents who seem to do good business, who seem to have a lot of listings, do a very condensed version of their listing presentation. And we're going to have a panel that says, okay, here's who we think the winner is, and here's what the good points of everything and all of that. So MDs, be thinking who you might want to nominate. Agents, if you think that's my wheelhouse right there, I want you to let me know, because I'll be reaching out on Monday to prepare the participants, let's say. But we've had a lot of talk lately about people wanting to see really good listing presentations and learn from the best. And so what better way to do it than enter a hot dog eating contest, but about listing presentations.
Do you want nominations for sellers also?
No.
For your listing presentations? You can dial
sure.
on.
Yes, we can do that one too.
Amber volunteers to be the seller if you're going to role play.
Oh, I see, to be the role play seller. Oh, okay.
Role playing at the listing presentation.
Amber's jumping right in.
Actual face.
Yeah, she's going to be like the world's biggest C on that.
Take it easy. Take it easy on her, right, Amber?
I will.
The biggest silly.
What did you mean about the equity? What? Oh, okay.
We should get a bracket together though too, and like sell squares.
Oh, like the semifinals? Yeah. That's awesome.
July, man.
Great. Okay. Any last words of wisdom or anything like that before we call it a day on this independent week?
I volunteered to be on the panel.
Eric says I'm on the panel. Carrie, did you try to? Your mic seems to. No, I guess not. All right. Hey, everybody, keep up the great work. Thanks for all the insights today, everybody.
I'm here, Derek. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Did you?
I just don't know how to. I don't know how to work the camera.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great weekend.
You
Keep up
too.
the work. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.